Hello, hello, hello. This is Amanda Elo'esh, your quicker waker upper. And I wanted to share a little bit about trauma and how you can heal it one small step at a time, day by day. And I'll start by sharing something that happened to me today. I was in the kitchen with my beloved, and he snapped a towel, not at me, just snapped a towel and it made a really loud sound, and my whole nervous system kind of went on edge, and I noticed myself getting really upset about it. And fortunately, I do subconscious success repatterning. I recognized the trigger as something inside of me that was being activated, and recognized whatever was done wasn't actually an attack or wasn't anything offensive. I tuned in, I took a breath and breathed into what was going on in my body. And I was instantly taken to a memory of my dad, who would flip me with a towel. And he thought it was a real funny game. And for me, it was painful. I didn't have any control over it. And it brought up in those moments a lot of anger that I couldn't stop it, that I was just subject to this harm, as mild as it was. And for a brief moment today, while I was tuning in, like, this is really silly, I shouldn't be upset about my beloved snapping a towel, I shouldn't be so upset about being snapped with a towel by my dad. But instead of judging it, I just breathed into the contraction. I breathed into the pain. It was like actual physical pain running up my spine and into my body, and just gave it permission to be released. And tears started to flow. And because I have a relationship with my beloved where we recognize traumas that come up as these old things, old traumas that are being activated for our best and highest, are coming up to actually be healed. I felt really safe to name what was going on, and I let myself cry. I let myself share about that experience, and my partner just held me while I cried and kind of shook and released it from my system. And that's what's possible, because when we have trauma, a lot of times what we spend our time doing is trying to control the outside stimuli, the outside things that trigger those traumas inside. We manipulate ourselves, we end up manipulating other people, we end up trying to manipulate the circumstances around us to avoid those triggers. But actually, those triggers are a great blessing, because those triggers and that trauma they are in the system. And when they can get activated in a safe and sacred, or at the very least safe space, and we give them permission without our judgment, and hopefully without the judgment of other people around us, we can give it permission to be released, and we can bring love and comfort and breath and soothing. And it's like letting some of that old stuff out. And that's what I believe the triggers are for. I have a friend named Eileen Barker, and she was recognized for her work in the field of forgiveness. She was recognized with Archbishop Desmond Tutu and posthumously Nelson Mandela. And she talks about the perpetrator, or the person activating that trigger inside of us, being a messenger, and to take the message in and to use it for our healing, and to dismiss the messenger. And I feel like that's a really beautiful awareness to have. Like, when people trigger us, sometimes they're not doing anything wrong. And even if they are, there may be a request we make but the trigger that's activated inside of us is for us to take care of. And the what I found that is so helpful in healing the trauma is giving it permission to come up as quickly as possible. And fortunately, this morning I was able to do it right there in the moment. There was an immediate like irritability and like, why did you do that? Don't do that. And then just really focusing on what's going on inside of me. And again, permission to let the tears come, permission to let all the feelings out. And it felt quite intense, and I had to do a lot of deep breathing. I felt a lot of intensity in my heart. I felt the intensity down my spine and in my nervous system. And in breathing and crying and letting out, a little fatigue afterwards as well, and just let myself integrate and calm down. And in doing so and being able to give myself a healing experience from that trigger, it permanently releases a little bit of that trauma from my system. And so next time when that trigger gets activated, it's going to be a lot less intense. I'm going to be a lot more mindful and aware and able to release it in the moment. And you can do the same thing. And that's how we heal the trauma from our system and clear it. I was talking with my beloved Matthew, Dr. Matthew, about these triggers. And what came to me was looking at it like a video game. And like the triggers are these levels that we need to clear. It's like we get this trauma in our system. And if we're not able to, in real time, get it out of the system through movement, through crying, through yelling, through shaking, there's a lot of different ways, tapping. There are all different kinds of ways to release it from the system. It ends up getting shoved down if we don't release it in real time. Oftentimes we feel like I can't express it right now, or we don't recognize that it needs to be expressed. We feel afraid to be vulnerable, and it gets shoved down, and then it's in the system and it's limiting us. It's limiting our thoughts, our actions, our energy levels, our decisions. It's having an impact on us day to day, but we don't see how it is actually impacting us. And having a trigger come up is a great blessing because it brings it to the surface. And if you know what to do with it, then you can do deep healing, again, little bit by little bit. And if you have a lot of trauma, then you're probably experiencing triggers on the daily. And if you can learn to celebrate, like, oh, thank goodness, here's another level for me to clear, and just notice where it is in the body and use some of the practices. Again, tapping, I like to usually I feel it in my heart, my chest area, and I'll give myself some love there. I can do some like massage. I do some deep breathing. I like to cry it out. That's a very gentle way of letting it out. Getting a hug from somebody you care about that can hold space in a good way, that can be incredibly helpful. And again, it releases some of that from the system permanently, versus what could have happened today, which I know is probably common and happening for a lot of people, is I'm going to reenact it as though, or describe it as, from the perspective of somebody that doesn't know what's going on. So say that towel gets flipped, I get the cracking sound, it creates that pain in my body and irritability. I'm going to find some reason to make that bad or wrong. I'm going to get irritable, like, why did you do that? And be angry about it. My partner is not going to understand what the big deal is. And it could turn into an argument or a fight, which is going to release cortisol, adrenaline into the system, which can be addictive, actually. And a lot of times we get addicted to that because we're unintentionally making those triggers a bigger deal than they need to be, and we're not actually healing them. And so then it's getting played out in, I'm going to find an excuse to yell. I'm going to find an excuse to act it out. But instead of and it can feel a little good in the moment to like find an excuse to yell, but it kind of passes it on, and it also doesn't bring a healing experience to the release of that trauma. And so it kind of just perpetuates more versus clearing some of that. So again, I look at it as a video game, like here's this trigger, and instead of it being like some first person assault where there's the enemy and I gotta shoot them, I look at it as, okay, here's this trigger inside that needs the love. It needs to be released. And so celebrating, I was actually so grateful to be able to be aware, to release, to bring the love, to be held, to talk about that old experience and to let it go from my system. And now I feel lighter. I feel like I have a deeper, fuller breath. I feel more clear. I feel lighter. And that's what you can do every day. If you've got trauma and you're experiencing triggers on the daily, this is something that you can do too. It could be really, really helpful to be able to talk with people that you're around, a roommate, a loved one, somebody that you're close to, so especially somebody that's triggering you a lot, to acknowledge that they are the messenger and to have this conversation and to recognize in the future when those triggers come up, instead of looking to blame, to recognize it's actually an incredible gift to be able to access it, to give yourself a moment to pause and really feel the feelings, to notice where the tension or the trauma is being held in the body, and to give yourself that movement, that whatever it is, to release it from the system. And I named a few ways already. Animals will shake their bodies and you can shake your body out. And I did all of that. I did the love, I did the shaking it out, I did the deep breath, I did the crying. Sometimes then it can be nice after that release to just drop into some stillness and some silence, to let it be released. And another thing I want to say about trauma while I'm here is that one thing I've noticed in being in partnership, being in friendship, and having clients who have trauma is that, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, is that if you're not aware of the fact that these triggers are actually assisting in bringing this old stuff up to be healed and released in a good way, then there can be a lot of time and energy and effort that goes into controlling the environment and controlling your relationships. I was in a long time friendship with someone who had a lot of trauma, and she created a lot of boundaries in our relationship, which was fine. I was fine in dealing with those boundaries, but they were very, very rigid. And anytime I was unable to meet those needs or those boundaries, there was a lot of anger and resentment that came towards me, and like a sense of punishment, like wanting to punish me, make me pay for triggering the trauma for this person. And I started to realize, like, me manipulating and twisting myself to fit into these tight parameters is, in a way, it's enabling this continued behavior versus the invitation to bring it up and out, to be healed and cleared. And so that this is the hard thing, is that we have trauma in our system, and that trauma wants to be seen, it wants to be soothed, it wants to be cared for, and to take accountability for it ourselves when it's like, I didn't put it there, I was abused, I was neglected, I was exploited, I was betrayed, all those things, to recognize like it is inside of you now, and those triggers are up to you to take care of and bring the love to. You can ask for help to, get a hug, or, have a compassionate listening ear. But the tendency is, unfortunately, to try to control everything. And that control can turn into a sense of manipulation by those who are around you. And I've experienced that in the past from partners, again, from this friend, of manipulation. And I know that it doesn't necessarily seem intentional. It's not like I'm trying to manipulate you to get what I need out of you, but that is what's happening. And so it's really, really important and helpful if we want to have healthy relationships to acknowledge again that the triggers are a gift, that there are ways to actually clear the trauma from the system. It's painful, it's intense, but bringing the healing to it instead of the anger or the avoidance or the blame, that just perpetuates it. That passes it forward. It doesn't actually clear it from the system. It temporarily can alleviate it, but then it's just waiting there to arise again versus the up leveling every single time. So if you again can see it as like a video game where it's like, oh, thank goodness this is coming up. I'm going to bring it the love. I'm going to, let it out in whatever ways work, a good run, a good dance, a good shake, some tapping, some crying. That can be very helpful. And if you know me well enough, you know that I facilitate plant medicine ceremonies. And these beautiful plant allies, also known as entheogens, which means generating the God within or experiencing God within. A lot of times there's purging, there's, getting well, vomiting, purging through other ways. I call it the 7 dwarves of release, but there's more than 7. There's shaky, sneezy, coughy, laughy, burpy, poopy, farty, pukey, weepy, all these different ways that the body is releasing from the system. And these plant allies can really help us to bring that up. And so if you're feeling called to check it out, you're invited. I'm mentioning it. I know there are a lot of people facilitating plant medicine ceremonies. Living Wisdom, which is the nonprofit I created, we provide safe and sacred spaces for you to have that ability to release from your system what's ready to be released. And doing it on a regular basis has helped me to be aware of this, to have this gentle release, to do it on a regular basis without waiting for a trigger. To know when the triggers arise, that it's an opportunity to clear out some old deep stuff and to have a little bit more of me and my current conscious self integrated. More of my wholeness is available. It brings more energy. It brings more clarity. It brings more confidence. It brings more joy, more ability to come from, again, your current conscious self versus that old child wounded self that will come to the forefront when that trigger happens. I hope this was helpful. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. If you have comments, if there's anything you'd like to share, I love to hear from you. Please leave comments, leave your questions. And for you watching on YouTube, if you like this, please give it the thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe. There's more about this. I've already done some videos about trauma and subconscious accessory patterning, which is this process of recognizing old triggers, old trauma in the system, and how to release it with love, how to let it go in a gentle, loving, compassionate way. I'm here for you. Stay tuned for more. And again, let me know how I can support you. And until we get to connect again, may the source be with you.